Once the ASKBILL web page is loaded, go up to the top right hand corner and click on Create Account. It asks you to enter some information about yourself, and once you've done that, click on Create Account. In the Setup wizard, you need to enter some information about your property. And the address is quite important, as this tells ASKBILL exactly where your property is located, so it can take the right weather information from the Bureau of Meteorology. And you can confirm your location on the map to make sure that it is as accurate as possible. And I often find it's useful to use the satellite function so you can check for any landmarks. Make sure you save that one, and then save and continue. Now we come to entering information about the pastures on your property. So enter the grazable area. So this is the total area available for grazing to your stock and does not include any heavily treed areas or any crops unless you're actually grazing them at the time. Then enter your percentage of winter and summer active species. So if you're not sure what these are, you can click on this blue info button, and that gives you a list of species that are included as winter active. So ryegrass, phalaris, clovers and lucerne come under this category. Likewise for your summer active species. This includes any subtropical pastures, so kikuyu is a good example, and any other summer active native grasses. Down in my region it's predominantly winter active. The productivity of your pasture encompasses a number of different growth parameters. It includes your pasture growth rate, the amount of green leaf in your pasture, how digestible the pasture is, so the quality of it, and the density of the pasture. So this is basically telling ASKBILL how well does your pasture grow. Think of the worst possible pastures in your region. They would have a productivity of 0, whereas the best possible pastures in your region have a productivity of 100. You can move your slider bar to roughly where you think it should be for your property. And I always recommend that people come back in a couple of months' time and check that their productivity slider is sitting about right, because it is quite subjective. So if ASKBILL's regularly over-predicting how much pasture you have, you need to come back in and reduce your productivity slider setting. Conversely, if it's constantly under-predicting how much pasture you've got compared to what's there in reality, you need to increase your productivity slider setting. Do that for both your winter and your summer active species. And then a quick way of checking whether you have these settings roughly right is to click on this refresh chart button for your monthly cut growth rate. And this tells you roughly how much pasture growth you can expect every day. So this is telling me that the majority of my pasture growth is going to occur in spring, and that's pretty much about right for my region. Now you need to enter how much pasture is available on your farm at the moment. So this is the average of all the paddocks in your grazable area. So setting targets is the way that you tell ASKBILL when to send you an alert. A target is a threshold value and the date for when you need to make a management decision. For example, down on the southwest slopes where I live, summers are quite hot and dry. So let's say I want to prepare for summer because the spring forecast is looking pretty dry and I'm not sure that I'll be able to grow enough pasture to support my stock over that summer period. So I'm going to set a target of 500 kilos, which is going to be my threshold for taking stock off those paddocks and putting them into a drought lot or selling them. My target date will be 1st of December, because if I don't have more than 500 kilos of pasture by then, I'm unlikely to grow any more anyway. Alternatively, I could set a target for 1,000 kilos for the 1st of November and use that as my point at which I should start supplementary feeding my stock to extend the use of my pastures. You can add multiple targets for different dates and change existing targets, and I'll show you how to do that later on. Now we move on to soil fertility. So you have an overall slider bar which goes from low to high soil fertility. But you can also open up this soil fertility calculator, which allows you to enter some soil test results for your coal well phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, and the aluminium percentage of your cation exchange capacity. When you move these slider bars, you'll notice that the overall soil fertility slider bar changes as well. Close that one. And now input your soil type. So it can be a bit tricky if your farm has multiple soil types, so just choose the one that best represents the majority of your farm, and I'll show you later on how you can set up different areas with different soil types. Save and continue. Now we're inputting our first livestock class, so we need to give it a name. Tell AskBill what type of animals they are. So you'll see you have breeding ewes, replacement ewes, wethers, rams, weaners. You also have cattle. So the reason there are cattle in here, even though AskBill doesn't provide any alerts for them, we need to make sure that the pasture they're eating is accounted for in the AskBill model. So breed type is important because it helps set some of the animal growth parameters in the model. So I'm going to use some medium frame merinos. I'll leave the record date as today's date. Now again we come to the targets. So this is a target for your ewe weight or condition score. It will ask you for both at this point. Generally these targets are useful for if you're coming up to lambing and you want your ewes to be in a certain condition score or weight, or if you have maiden ewes that you're trying to grow out to reach a certain percentage of their mature weight so that they will start cycling and you can join them at a good time. So I'm going to put in here that we are lambing in September, so I want them to be at least a condition score 3 and about 60 kilos. If you have a ram select account that you can link in, this is how you add in your genetic information to AskBill. Either you have a flock profile for this group, you might have a flock profile or ram ASKBILLs for the parents of this group, and all you have to do is click on that button and you can sign into your ram select account and choose which team is relevant. In this case, I'll say I don't have one. So what you see in front of you here are the figures that tell AskBill how that animal grows. So our mature weight at condition score 3, you might be familiar with the term standard reference weight. So that is a mature sheep that is not pregnant, has no fleece and no gut fill. So AskBill is recommending that the weight for our sheep is 52. And that figure is based on the breed type selection that I've chosen up here. So I've entered 60 kilos as their current weight, so keep in mind that that is their current weight including their fleece. So it will be heavier than this recommended standard reference weight. AskBill has also recommended a birth weight, a weight at 100 days, so this might be similar to a weaning weight, and the wool cut. If we had genetic information from our ram ASBVs, that would be showing up here in this column. And the recommended values are the breeding values plus the genetics. If these values look about right to you, you can click on this button here and it will automatically pre-fill them for you, or you can input your own values into those boxes. With your weaning percentage, just enter what is the average weaning percentage for that mob, and the weaning age. If you enter days, it will automatically calculate weeks and vice versa. Now we move on to the visual traits of that mob. So this informs the fly strike model. Obviously, factors like breech wrinkle, breech cover, and dags will heavily influence the risk of those sheep to fly strike. So you might have sheep that cover the entire range that you see here. So just put your slider bar roughly where you think the average of the mob is. ASKBILL needs to know whether they're mulesed or not, as that will also affect the risk of fly strike. And the yes with pain relief, this feeds into the animal welfare component of ASKBILL that's being built at the moment. Likewise, the questions about the dams of these animals. Save and continue. So now ASKBILL is telling us that we've set up enough information that we can go and view the current risks. So go ahead and click on that button now and it will take you to the risks page. And the next video will explain how to view and interpret those risks and use some of the what if tools that are a part of that. But just keep in mind that because we've only given ASKBILL some information about the livestock and pastures, the risks that it's showing may not be accurate.